Taleresco, and I am reunited with the terrible twosome that is Matt Knowles and Steph Cannon. They are the Misfits in the house. But before I'm going to just do this time, just get it out of the way so before we get right into them. But I'm going to just share this little link right here. So this is my book. Alice 1 comes out December 1st. The pre-order just dropped today. And so for everybody watching, listening, like it's going to be coming out December 1st. And the link is right there. And pretty much I'll be pimping this nonstop anywhere you see me. So every episode, you're probably going to hear this. I'm sorry, guys, but we got to chill as we chill, right?
You're doing a show. You're allowed to do whatever the heck you want, man.
Yeah, it's your show. You do it.
I know. I think you guys understand this because you've been you've been doing your own thing. And speaking of which, that's the other part of this. Why I did it like this, because the other thing that needs to be mentioned, and I'm going to put this up right now, is so people can actually see what I'm doing here. You're going to see, that is a Kickstarter from the Insymmetry Creations. This is the Misfitz Clubhouse, right? So I have to ask this just based on our last conversation. Are you guys big Misfits fans, as in the metal band Misfits?
So it's funny, I'm not, and I'm also not a fan of the Misfits biker gang. So that's partially why we have spelled it with a Z at the end, because we didn't want people thinking we were talking about the band or the clubhouse of the Misfits biker gang. So we had to spell it with a Z just to make sure that it was differentiated when it came to websites and such.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's also again, that's a hard brand to compete with too, right? Because again, either way, they're pretty big, and you're like, I'm a misfit too. But also, I mean, just with what you guys are doing, you're doing a kid's book, like a young adult book. So, I mean, the Z or the Z, depending on which country you're in right now, right? It's appropriate. It's absolutely appropriate for, I think, the kind of book you're trying to make here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but I mean, as I said here, it's odd to pimp yourself. You have to say, "Hey, I'm awesome." And I think one of the hardest things as a artist / business person / whatever the heck kind of engineer, jack of all trades, whatever we are, plugging yourself might be the hardest part of the biz.
Well, to me, there's a phrase that was given to me back in my music days. When I say back in my music days, I mean when that's what I was doing, was only playing in a band. And it was, people want to hear about a band and not from a band. So I try to make sure that I'm either sharing what other people have said about what we're doing, or I'm trying to help talk about other people, or I'm trying to help talk about what we can do that's going to benefit someone like Josh. Because every single creator out there can talk about how awesome they think they are. Oh, my book is great. My thing is great. But everybody can say that. It's what makes what we're doing different, or what's the thing that could be the benefit to you as the reader or you as the listener that you could get out of what we're doing. That's what we try to make sure that we talk about as we go through this media tour, so to speak, about Misfitz Clubhouse.
Well, and on the same token too, we were on another show recently where the topic came up about how you handle yourself at conventions. And a couple people were saying, I'm not good at selling my stuff. I'm not going to do that because I don't feel comfortable talking to people, or, just kind of some self-deprecating humor about the quality of their stuff. And the thing is nobody is going to want to buy your stuff if you're not excited about it. You have to be excited and want to sell your stuff for people to want to buy it.
So I got a great.
You're not excited about it, I'm not going to be excited about it. I'm sure as heck not going to buy it. And it's kind of like, people, you have to know that it's okay to, you don't want to sit and be so cocky that it's like, my book is the best book ever. My book is so awesome that, you don't want to do that, but it's okay to say that you're proud of your work and get people excited about it and hyped about it. Otherwise, no one's going to make it in this industry with that kind of attitude.
So first off, Jagtress, hi, how you doing? Welcome to the show. This is Steph. This is Matt. They both are amazing. They're probably my favorite awesome a combo, or writer artist team, right? Or just team all the way around.
Both,
right?
Yep, writers.
Yeah, team all the way around. And
yes.
but the thing is, I got a really fun story about this. So Phoenix Comic Con about 6 years ago. I was in Phoenix. So the first day, beside me, there are these two executives about the Phoenix Suns. This is back when 3D printers were still kind of halfway cool. We're just going to say they're known, but they're not that known, right? So they were going to do a demonstration 2 days. In 2 days from the day I met them, because it's preview night, and they got to do some stuff. They're going to get their buddy to come in the next day, and he's got this comic. So in my row, like in this row, we had this really established artist beside me. He was doing really, really gangbusters. There was me with my big mouth, and like go further down, there's like movies being promoted. Jake the Snake Roberts was in this row. Like this was a pretty awesome like group of people that were in this row. So the next day, shows up. This guy shows up. He's got this comic that's actually really good. Doesn't say a word to anybody, like absolutely anybody. It killed me to watch him. It was like I had to watch, like, does his book suck? Is this why he's not talking? Nope. He just wasn't comfortable doing it,
I mean, and it's tough. Matt is extrovert extreme, and I'm more of an extroverted introvert. I can put myself out there when I need to be, but I'm not as comfortable doing it as he is. But I've learned that I have to be. I have to step out of my comfort zone in order to be presentable to people and be professional and sell my product. And so I get it. It's hard. It's difficult to make small talk with strangers, or, there's a difference between being a carnival barker, which we have seen at shows, and whether that works for them or not. I don't know if they get return customers, because I know if somebody is yelling across the aisle to try to get my attention, I'm going to keep walking, because I don't like that sales tactic. I know that there are people that it works for them, but that's not what we're going to do. We want to treat people with respect, and sometimes all it takes is just a, hey, how are you doing today? Or if they're wearing a cool shirt, comment on their shirt, like, hey, I like Boba Fett too, and they might come over. You never know what's gonna spark the conversation and lead to that.
Anything to add, good sir?
Oh, well, I think that Steph is a lot better at being that extrovert than she wants to lead on. I've seen Steph do a great job at that, and I think that I am not much more different than she is. We both like to have fun. We both like to engage with people, and sometimes you're not really just selling your product, you're selling yourself. People like to be around positive, and if they feel like they can be around positive energy, they might give your stuff a second look. You always want to take every opportunity you can, if you're a business person, to try and find the thing that somebody may vibe on. They may vibe on your product, they may vibe on your display, they may vibe on your presentation. That's why Steph and I are always dressed very similarly, twinning at shows. They may vibe on your personality. Give them every possible opportunity to find something about you that you like. Don't make them have to dig to find it. You give them everything right off the bat, and they're going to find the thing they gravitate towards, and you just kind of have to roll from there.
I actually have this theory that, like, when you get right down to it, that in one real sense, you're the product, not so much the work you have, you're the product. And you have to realize that how you treat people, there are shows I don't do so great at sales the first time I go, but the second time I go, it's like, hey, I remember you. And then they come check out your stuff. Like it's the real thing is, it's not about sales, it's about relationships, because people are going to recognize you for who you are. And the fact that you're good at what you do is what keeps them coming back for more. Although I have to agree with you about one thing. I know Steph's got a performer in her. I kind of seen it a little bit. It just like there.
I do.
Yeah.
But I have my threshold. Like, if it's a 1 day, 6 hour show, or a 2 day, show that's 8 hours. But when we do the big, like, we did a couple of shows over the summer that were 4 days and like 10, 11 hour days every single day. And I don't care who you are, by Sunday afternoon, you are done. You are tapped out being on like that. And I say this as a runner. I have run 2 full marathons, and I'm getting ready to run my 19th half marathon. It is just as exhausting mentally to do 4 day shows like that. Doesn't mean I don't love them, because I do. Don't get me wrong. I love doing those shows, but it is just as taxing to do that as it is to run, like it's a different kind of tired, but boy, when you have to be on like that, I know Matt and I, when we're done with a show like that, we just want to, it's just like, okay, we're just going to go back and we don't want to go to a restaurant. We're going to pick up some food and go, just go back to our room and just sit and just not do anything.
I can tell you one tactic I have not employed yet, which I think I need to start doing, is to play some 80s music that I know Steph is going to want to sing along to. And
it's
I think that immediately she's going to be like, I don't care who else is in the room. I am going to dance around and sing to that song and just have fun with it. So I think that may be what has to happen in one of these next.
It's my cheer me up mode. I have several, but that's one of them.
well, see, so for me, it's 3:00 in the afternoon on a Sunday, because you can feel it. That's when the energy in a convention just dies. It's
bad.
Yeah, I just know. You feel it, right? You just know exactly what it is, right? And because you got this energy. All like the first 3 days you got, and sometimes at the end you're like, oh God, I don't know if I got it in me. Then you go sleep, you wake up, so then you find that energy again. But at 3:00 in the afternoon, no, whatever was that it's gone, and you're like
3 to 5 o'clock range, like you said, on a Sunday afternoon is what it's tough. But you know what I do like? The only thing I do like about that time is that typically tends to be the time when you get to talk to some of your neighbors. And because usually, like, especially the bigger shows, you're all so busy that you don't really get a chance to interact. And we've met some really cool people that have been next to us where it's like, oh, hey, we were next to each other all weekend and we didn't even get to say hi because we were all so busy. But then you get kind of a chance to chat with them and, just make different connections and meet people and stuff. And that's cool.
Very cool. So what does Steph sing to? I'm curious.
What do I not sing to? I'm kind of like the human jukebox. I just know like a very wide range of songs because I've listened to almost every genre in my whole entire life.
If I had a nickel for every time I heard her say, "This is my jam,"
this is my jam. Every song is my jam.
Literally, I have seen her do her little dance, even to the song that her washer and dryer make when they're done with their roll. She's like, this is my jam. Do.
But we'll be in his car and he'll finally put on 80s music. And he has this extensive library of 80s music. And every time I'm like, oh, I love it. Then he switches it and changes it to a different song. And then I get excited about that one. And then he switches it again.
I'm like, I'm trying to get to a specific song. She's like, well, that's the 19th one of my jams that you've skipped.
You just can't win. And you're like, I can't win. Damn it.
I know.
Can't win. So what's your favorite 80s stuff? I'm going to ask Matt. I'm going to ask Matt this first because I got the feeling
you'll answer too.
My favorite 80s song is Land of Hunger from the Earons. It was a very obscure dance song, but I really dug the video. I actually have it on vinyl right behind me and just the other day when we were doing our tests of our own vinyl records and the test of our test prints of ours, I actually pulled out my vinyl of Land of Hunger from the Earons, which I had never had on a turntable before, and listened to it. I like a lot of 80s music from Europe. Culture Club. I've actually met the bass player from Culture Club, Mikey Craig. His son used to play on a soccer team in Ocala, that a semi-pro team I used to work with. So I got to meet him at one of those shows. And he's like, hey, anytime you want to come out to a Culture Club show, come and do it. I'm like, I would freaking do that, man. Why wouldn't I? I never get a chance to. But I'm like, when the bass player of the Culture Club is actually inviting you to come to a show, I'm like, man, if I could make this happen, I'd do it.
Yeah. Okay.
So I always say that the 80s stuff that I love is like your quintessential power ballads that you hear at every karaoke party, like the Total Eclipse of the Heart and Alone. But I will say too, and this is timely because I was listening to this podcast this morning, but I'm a huge Danny Elfman fan. Huge. So of course I love Boingo Boingo. But I was listening to a podcast with him this morning. So that's what kind of sparked it. And I was remembering just how much I love their entire library of songs.
Ooh, interesting one for you both. So, do you always have a song in your head?
Almost always. And I mean, you know what? It's kind of weird. I feel like if I'm tired, I don't as much, but then I'll have weeks where I'll have the same song stuck in my head, or like it really bad with commercial jingles where it's not the stuff that you want stuck in your head. It's like, dang it, you know? Or the worst for me is if somebody says they have a song stuck in their head and they say what it is, then it automatically, my brain's like, okay, now it's your turn. Mm-hmm. But I actually had some of our songs. So we got the test pressings in for our vinyl for our Airs Matilda versus Tales for Nocturnia album that just recently came out. We're waiting on the vinyl still. For those that don't know, vinyl production and vinyl pressings are very, very far behind right now, like 6 months behind. And so our prior Kickstarter, everything is fulfilled.
But yeah,
everything is fulfilled on our prior Kickstarter. We're just waiting on the vinyl, kind of out of our hands. But the good news is that we got the test pressings in last week or the week before, but we were listening to them last week. And that's good because now we're kind of getting the ball really rolling. But we had to, when you get the test pressings, you have to listen to both sides and each copy that you have several times to make sure that there's no discrepancies, no pops, no any of the really, really noticeable things. And so we were listening to the album over and over again. So I had those songs stuck in my head, but that's okay because, you know, those are our songs.
Oh, I've always, even today I had one of our songs. We're actually writing, we have a series of articles that we're doing called Lyrical Look-ins. And we're going to post another one of them tomorrow, which I would say, even though we're only a few articles in, is going to be the most important one of these articles that we could probably put out there. So we really hope that people are going to take a look at our website. It'll probably be up probably about, noon, lunchtime on Eastern time. But it's probably going to be the most important one of these that we have ever put up there. And there's obvious reasons for why it is. And they have to deal with Corey, who was the other musician that passed away tragically just before we started our Kickstarter. And so he's definitely got a big role in the article that we're going to be posting tomorrow. And you are the first person that actually gets to, once we're done with this, we're probably going to go make that same exact post on Facebook.
That's very cool. Thank you. No, so I've had this song stuck in my head for about 2 years.
Oh,
it's actually it's a good song. It's
okay.
not a shit song. I'm a video gamer, so one of my favorite games is Persona 5. So the final boss, the final boss themes is called Rivers in the Desert. It's Japanese rock and roll. And now that sounds really weird, but it's completely English. It's like Michael Jackson and like metal met together. And it's an amazing final boss like battle song.
Nice.
Yeah. So I've had this in my head. Well, I just love the lyrics. It's now, it's never. I got to make my decision. This could be my moment. It's all about like making a choice to change your life. Right? That's a big part of that. And I've been kind of going down this freelance route, so I can definitely see why it's connected to me. But it's incredibly catchy. It's like ridiculously catchy. It's like,
Josh,
wow.
did I ever share with you Wagaki Band? Wagaki Band is a current band, but they are some seriously awesome J-pop. Awesome Japanese band that uses a lot of Japanese historic folk instruments in their rock, but they're some really good
man.
I'll share.
Yeah, you definitely should. Like I do listen to other countries just because it's such a different, like every country has like their own perspective on music, and in some ways it's all the same. Like I cannot, like when you break it right down, relationships are the heart and soul of music. Doesn't matter what culture it is. My significant other is awesome, or my significant other is shit, are the number 1 and 2. Right?
Yeah.
Right. But how they approach like love, romance, like some of the beats are very different, and it's very fascinating to actually see. It's cool where we're all the same, and it's also cool where we're all different because you think about things a lot differently when that's the case.
Don't worry about checking that. That was me. I'm sending you a couple of Wagaki Band links right now, and you're going to be like, "What the heck? You are the best."
That's awesome. I'll send you that song when we're done too, because I get the feeling you'll dig it.
Cool.
Yeah, I get the feeling you guys dig it. So, ladies and gentlemen, also the other thing too. Earlier this week, I shared a metal band from Calgary to Matt earlier in the week, and so he said something back. So it's like that's a pretty cool part of being a freelancer. It's like, hey, I got this really cool shit you might
I
like.
love
And you're
that.
like, oh, that's cool. Here's some
Yeah.
cool shit you might like. Yeah.
I've been introduced to
Absolutely.
so many bands thanks to Matt. I mean, they're bands that I would never ever have ever stumbled across in my lifetime. I just know that I wouldn't have. So it's fun. It's fun to I love discovering new music. It doesn't mean I might like it because Matt's taste is very eclectic when it comes to certain bands, but
I'm into any metal that has got some kind of creativity. There could be the most brutal band out there in the history of all mankind, like Archspire, or you could have bands like Wagaki Band, or stuff that just delves like true folk areas, like Herza or Otava Yo. I'll listen to her. Steph has got a much more. It's funny when you look at like what she likes metal wise compared to what I like. She's like, do not give me the folk instruments, and I want doom.
I don't want the heavy stuff.
death
I want
metal.
like the dark, like doom metal.
So note to self: do not be beside Steph in a mosh pit. She'll beat me.
No, and actually, Matt and I've been to 3 metal shows now, somewhere around that range, and it's so great, like with our height difference because he's 6'3" and I'm 5'2", and so he just sort of, and he's used to it. He's been to countless shows, and he knows exactly what to do. He knows exactly how to be like a barrier, and so I can actually enjoy the show, not worry about being pummeled.
Well, no. No, I'd be more worried about you doing the pummeling, to be perfectly honest.
You never know. You never know. Yeah. I'm small but mighty.
Well, no, I no, because I've been beside guys like Matt. They're actually okay, but there's almost like, sorry, man, I'm going to be this barrier. You're just going to have to deal with it. It's like, that's cool, right? And that's it, right? That's it. That's all there is to it, right? And most of the time, like guys like you tend to protect somebody else. That's why you're usually in the pit, right?
I'm the guy that always stands on the back side of the pit because I don't want to be in a pit. I want to watch the dang show, and I want to be. I normally am in the back so I can see the pit in front of me. I can see the band in front of me. I don't have somebody worried about running into my back. But I'm the guy that people always will put their girlfriends behind because the guy's like, hey, stand behind that guy because I'm going to go mosh. And I'm like, that's fine. You know what I'm saying? I'm here hanging out. My services are free of charge.
Well, it doesn't really impact you either way, and also it's something you probably do anyway. It's like if you saw somebody like trying to take advantage, like, nah, man, I ain't cool, and that'd be the end of that, right? So no, so for you then, so Amon Amarth would be your thing then, Steph.
Oh yeah,
okay,
Amon Amarth, Apocalypse Orchestra. It's just. I like the doom and gloom.
I like power European ballads tend to be where I go, but I will shift the different like extremes too. I just listened to Ugentrust. I think that's how you say their name. Could be wrong. I may have gotten their name wrong. So because I discovered them because my love of AEW wrestling, Malachi Black's theme is one of their songs. So just like,
his theme is badass. His theme is really badass.
Oh yeah, no. So and also I know what they're talking about with eye bright because my dad's a herbalist. Yeah, it cures the eyes is what it actually does. So it's like it's an interesting like I love the creative presentation he has. It's such a neat presentation. So it's like, but he's a big metal guy. So like metal, like the cool thing about metal is. Metal, jazz, and classical have so much in common because they're all almost the mechanics of how music is built. Jazz is like the truly experimental. They'll take the expectations classical builds on and kind of just play with the extremes. Metal, I find, actually, this is what I have found. I could be totally wrong on this. Metal guys are usually the biggest classical music fans. I hear a lot of actually like the foundations of music in metal. It's so interesting that actually when you listen to them, right, they honor it. They go into the expectations. They lean into them in interesting ways. Jazz challenges the expectations in interesting ways, right? And classical is kind of where both of them meet. It's such an interesting. Am I on something, Matt, or am I onto something?
I think that there's a certain genre of music that's out there right now, or a subgenre of metal that if you listen to, say, bands like Inferi or specifically bands like Beyond Creation and First, where you're talking about bands that play 8-string guitars that have got the extra octave lower. They have bass players playing 6-string basses, where instead of them playing low on the fretboard, they're playing like the higher notes. So the guitars and the bass are basically reversing their roles. And that you're talking about that jazz influence really, because you get some of the most absurd runs. You're just like, dude, what are you even doing? How do your hands even work that way? It almost pisses me off at times when I see like, hey, and Ferry's got a new playthrough video. I'm like, nah, I don't want to watch that because all it's going to do is demoralize me, because I don't even understand how Malcolm and Mike and Andrew Kim can play this crap the way that they do and make it look so effortless. Okay, I'm going to watch it anyways because it's so dang good.
Yes. And that's where your eclecticness comes from, because you appreciate the art form, not just listening to the songs, but how they're made. So, and so no matter how eclectic it is, if you can understand at least where they're coming from a little bit, you can dig it.
Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah. And whereas Steph, I'm not so much into that. I just want to rage.
I just like the doom and gloom. I just got through spooky season, and like all of my posts were all about Halloween. I love horror. I'm a horror movie reviewer, horror columnist, and so it's actually not that surprising if you know like my taste and what I'm into. So yeah,
So I have a theory about people like that it's how you get all your more aggressive stuff out, and so you can be this really nice, sweet person. It's like I have a healthy balance. All my rage I take out in this little corner of the universe, and then for the rest, I'm just cool. Right?
Very well could. That's the way to do it. Something there.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
No, I have found, like, honestly, when I've interviewed metal bands, they're the sweetest people.
Oh my gosh!
Honestly,
yes,
they are. They're so sweet.
Honestly, when I wasn't, and I've said this a lot, especially when we were promoting the last Kickstarter, when we were talking about the metal album, and I had a lot of people ask me, has Steph, have you been a metal fan all your life? And I always say, it wasn't that I didn't like metal music. I just was never exposed to it enough to have an opinion either way. And after meeting Matt and getting exposed to all this music, I realized I'm a little bit of a metalhead. I actually really love this music. When I went to my first metal show, I could not believe the energy that these guys have, because I think a lot of people have a preconceived notion of what metal musicians are like and how they're going to be on stage. And and I may have had that, or it just may have just been because there's a stereotype, but I just couldn't believe how happy they were, And then when we met in Fairy, the band in Fairy, who we actually have had in one of our comics as drawn in characters. They were the nicest, happiest dudes. And I thought, you know what? I can roll with this. I love this. And then they get on stage and you're just like, holy crap, these guys can like just, they're just completely different personalities on stage. But I love it. That's one of the things I love about metal music.
The first band she ever saw was Ne Obliviscaris, which is an Australian extreme metal band that's fronted by a violin player. And we have some pictures where like she'd be standing there watching and I'd take the camera and I'd reach it in front of her because she was standing there going, just like literally jaw dropped, just away. Like I've never experienced something like this. I thought I'd been to concerts before, but now I've actually been to a concert, and it like blew away any preconceived notion she had. It was actually really cool seeing her relate to a band like Ne Obliviscaris the way that she did.
Oh yeah. And the thing that I love too is we were talking about the mosh pits, and yeah, the mosh pits get really crazy. But at least at these shows, and I know that this isn't the case all the time everywhere, but at these shows, and I think a lot of the smaller metal shows, the guys are so funny because they're, if somebody falls and gets hurt, everybody stops. And, oh, you okay? And they're helping them up. And once they make sure he's all right, then they go right back to it. There was a dude in a wheelchair that everybody lifted up and was like carrying him around. And I thought, this is so amazing, because you think that these guys are all like just, freaks that are just, but everybody is just having fun and they don't want anybody to get too hurt. So you're going to get hurt when you get in the mosh pit. If somebody's going to get seriously hurt, they stop what they're doing and make sure they're okay.
So that tends to apply actually at pretty much every mosh pit. So like my favorite show of metal was Amon Amarth. I actually got to see them live. So they're really good. If you haven't seen them live, folks, you definitely should.
Yeah, Amon Amarth is badass live.
Yeah. Oh my God. We actually shook the building. We were that loud. But I still remember this. They did Thunder God, like the Thor. So
Twilight of the Thunder God.
we went past the encore. We actually went past the encore. We were still in the building. They literally looked to the boss like they're gonna riot if we don't play. Right? So they went and played Thunder. And I remember this, right? Because I'm one of those crazy motherfuckers. I'll go right to the front of the pit, right? I actually ended up like third row, like in that. It was such a cool experience. But what ended up happening is I still remember this. So the weird thing I never expected to happen was I feel a wheel hit my top of my head. It's like, what the fuck? Look up. There's a dude getting like crowd surfed in a wheelchair. Like only in a metal show will you.
I
ever
know,
see
it's so
that.
cool. I love it.
Yeah, but what you were talking about, like the unwritten rule, that is the unwritten rule. You're gonna take punishment in a pit, like that's just the way it is.
You're gonna get bumps and bruises and all that, but seriously injured, no one wants that to happen.
No, they will they will stop. Like if someone goes down, it's just courtesy to help them up. It really is.
I love that. I love that. It's just people having fun and it's uninhibited. You know, how many times in your life can you do something like that where it's okay? It's okay to crash into people and, you know, everyone's all right with that. You know, it's just kind of like setting yourself free and you're not even thinking anymore. You're just kind of as this animalistic, just feeling the music and just doing whatever it is that you want. I think that's cool. I won't go into a mosh pit, but I think it's cool. I'm like, oh, those guys are having fun. It's great. You know, I would get killed if I went into a mosh pit. I'm too small.
I somehow think you'd do fine. I just something tells me you would do.
There's some chicks, man. There's some chicks
Steph
that
had a football helmet on.
Steph
had a football helmet on, maybe. But if there was no football helmet,
no, fair enough.
They're tough. They're way tougher than I am, you know, and they're small like I am too, and they go right in, and I'm like, dang, you know, I've got some respect for them. That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know. You said you do marathons. You're a mom.
Yeah.
I think you're probably tougher than we give you credit for. I have respect for anyone that raises kids. That they have to naturally be tough. Or their kid will just run them over. So.
Oh yeah, don't I know it? There is a saying. It's a saying in the runner's world that I've applied to what we do too. And a lot of times when people ask, "Oh, what's an advice that you would give, you know, a content creator?" And that's you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that kind of goes back to what we were saying before about putting yourself out there when you don't want to talk to people. But you know, with running, you're going to be uncomfortable, and you have to just realize that that's what it's going to be. Sometimes you have to just accept it. But it's the same thing with content creation. There's going to be times when you're going to have to step out of your comfort zone in many different ways, in a lot of different ways, whether it's talking to people or if it's having to have a difficult conversation with somebody in your team or getting rejected. There's a lot of different things that are going to make you feel uncomfortable. And you have to just kind of learn that that's part of the industry, as long as it's nothing extreme where you're getting abused or, you know, somebody's, you know, saying like really horrible things about you, then it's just sort of part of the deal.
Well, yeah, no, so I have 8 rules to success. The 8th rule is stay uncomfortable. It's literally rule 8.
So see, same exact thing. Yep.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, it's ironic. Something I realized, like, for most, I studied, like, I've interviewed a lot of successful people, you two included. I've just interviewed some really successful people. And one of the things I realized, like, successful people share certain traits in common. Most of them become very and one of the things I think is there's an uncomfortable honesty with oneself and what one truly wants. To truly succeed in this business, you have to have you can't fall necessarily in love with an objective, because honestly, that is the one part of this business no one really has any control over. Where you end up can sometimes be the greatest accident in the world. Sometimes it's a great spectacular failure. Usually it's somewhere in the middle, but extremes do happen. It's a roller coaster. But the thing is, what I have found is that the people who truly, truly go somewhere in this business have a moment of like, okay, what do I want out of this? What's holding me back? And what can I do can I avoid this? Do I have to overcome this? And the ones that really do succeed usually find an answer to that question. And very often the things that make us uncomfortable or make us scared is ultimately our door to get to where we want to go.
Oh yeah, and complacency is the killer of dreams. So that's gonna you can't stay complacent for long, because you're not gonna move forward or grow. We all have to grow. We were on a show a couple nights ago talking about, it was essentially everyone talking about how they look back at the very first things they ever did, whether it was an artist and the first things they ever drew, or writers, the first things that we ever created. And at the time, you think that it's the greatest thing ever. And then you look back several years later and you're like, oh, that wasn't as great as I thought it was. Or it's, hey, that's great though, because that means I've grown. I've learned from that and I've grown.
Just making sure he's still there, because you just froze. You just froze there for a second.
Oh, I was just chilling. I was here.
No. You actually.
Yeah, it lagged just a little.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't saying anything. Oh, yeah. I was just listening. So.
No, it's cool. I just want to make sure, right? Because it's like, right. I want you to. I get it's like sometimes it's just cool to listen and chill, but when I don't see you move, now he's just freezing for the sake of freezing. I can tell.
Yeah, gotta keep you on your toes, man.
Hey, dude, I have no idea what we're gonna talk about before we start. I always keep myself on my toes, right? It's just one of those things where it's how you learn, right? It's how you learn. So it's that honest look at what gets in the way. And like for me, I started drawing last year. It's almost been a year since I started drawing, and I've seen where I've come from when I started, and I cringed just a little bit, but again, it's also that one of the hardest lessons I think I've learned too is it's not about how good you are in an odd way. Don't get me wrong. Like the more skilled you are, the more polished you are, the more you catch attention. But it's the fact that you get it done. It's such a big part of this too, that talent might be the least interesting thing about a person. Actually, it's their drive to succeed. I think that makes people who they are.
I think there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, you have to be well-rounded. You have to have some form of talent, but you also have to have some marketing. You have to have some personality, because kind of like what we talked about at the start, is that you want to give people every potential option that they can to try to latch onto you. They might latch onto you because of your drive. They might latch onto you because of your actual talent. They might latch onto you because of your effort. But give them reasons to actually want to see you succeed, because you could have all the talent in the world, but if you come off like a complete and total jerk, nobody's going to want to put their money behind you. Nobody's going to want to put their support behind you. So sometimes it's like they say that you could have somebody who's a pretty girl, but if they have a crappy personality, they become ugly. Sometimes somebody may be actually talented as a creator, but if they have the wrong kind of personality, it starts to weigh on the people's opinion of what that creation is. So I think there's a balance. You always have to be kind of working on every aspect that's out there and understanding what you can provide and what you can actually make better along the way.
I agree with that. So let's ask an interestingly personal question. Because you guys, Matt, I get the feeling in your case, like because of your music experience, you probably dealt with this a little differently when you got into comics. And Steph, again, everything I've learned about you, like last time we talked, the biggest thing I regret I have was you've done a lot of things, and you're connected to a lot of interesting things that we never really got into last time.
I know, yeah.
Right. But I still feel this is almost an interesting question, because you guys, like we mentioned last time you were here, you're almost like a band unto yourself, or a family unto yourself, that are creating your content all over. But what was the most uncomfortable thing about comics for both of you that you had to overcome?
I would say for me, the first thing was just understanding the way that the industry worked. One of the things that we try to talk about a lot now is part of the reason why Steph and I started working together was we realized that, one, we thought the same way and we had the same ultimate goals and what we wanted to do. But we also realized that we were the yin and yang to each other in what our strengths were and what our weaknesses were. We both were self-aware of what we brought to the table. We did not have a solid strength in. And it just so happened that the other person had the other side of that equation. For me, I've always been a writer. But I've been a lyric writer and a prose writer, and transitioning from that world to comics is completely night and day, because in lyric writing and in prose writing, you're supposed to be big and wordy and flowery and let the words do the talking. You can have a couple of pages in prose about a person walking up a flight of stairs. You know, the handrail did this, and the carpet underneath their feet felt this way, and the smell of the upstairs. And you're like, in comics, you're just like, dude, we might need one panel to see these guys going up the stairs. Show don't tell. And Steph was the one that really helped me to understand, hey, you don't know squat about actually making a comic, illustrated novels right now.
I never said it that way, by the way.
No. She never said it that way, but it was the realization of, I need to understand the basics, which she understood it a lot better than I did. And to create the things I was trying to create, needed someone that actually started their career in writing basically as someone on the comic side. You know what I'm saying? Mine needed to transition from lyric writing and prose writing. And I needed somebody to be able to be like, okay, we need to have the cold turkey. Let's force you into doing comics. And she forced me in a very nice way. I know it's kind of an oxymoron to say forced nicely, but it was every one of those little steps I would take. She'd be like, hey, great, I'm glad you see you doing that. Hey, great, I'm glad to see you doing that. Then after a while, I'm like, damn, I can't believe I used to do it that way. And she's like, yeah, I know, but I was, being nice about it the whole way through. And I saw that you were actually making progress to get there. And, you kind of had to work your way through it. And, now here we are. So now I can look back and go, dang.
That we have worked together as long as we have. We know exactly what the other one needs and how it needs to be implemented. And so I know for Matt, he needs to sometimes figure something out on his own instead of being beat over the head with it by, 5 or 6 people all saying the same thing. That's difficult. He would rather, kind of grow and learn through doing it himself. And so when it came to Eris Vasildor, when I came into the picture and he had already had 2 issues done, transitioning it from the quasi ebooks, format that he had it into where it is now as an actual comic, and learning about, and he's doing the lettering. He needed to learn how to letter. Lettering is not easy. I think a lot of people go, oh, you just put a circle on a page and put the words in it. And that is not it at all. And there are a lot of lettering rules in comics. People don't realize. And a lot of times you don't realize that you know those rules until you see bad lettering. Or lettering that is not even bad. It's just lettering that isn't following the rules because it's distracting. And it's not meant to be distracting. It's meant to just be there on the page. And stylistically, it can look good. But, and so anyway, I knew that if I said it in a way that was sounding like I was talking down to him, it was going to be difficult. Whereas, and then that's a human trait. We need to learn on our own sometimes. And so,
it's so a couple things to unpack. First off, I will say this: anyone that lettering is probably the most underappreciated part of the comic by a shot.
Yeah.
So, and just to give an example of one of the more interesting rules about lettering, there's 2 of them: characters and white space. Believe it or not, are very important in lettering.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And the only other thing I will mention really quick, because I'm not going to pretend I know everything about lettering. I do not. But what I will say this is good design. If it's really, really good, you never notice it.
Yes,
if it's
exactly.
Bad,
that's like the number 1 rule.
Yeah. Bad design, everybody notices.
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And oh, how I wish some people would realize that, because we've seen some bad graphic design, and not just in comics, just in life. I'm not speaking specifically with comics, but we've seen some bad graphic design just in content creation as a whole across all mediums. And boy, yeah, I just don't think that people realize sometimes.
One of the things I learned back in the day, I've done a lot of acting for a ballet company, because they needed actors to fill some roles to, secondary spots so the ballerinas could do their thing, but they needed some actors to fill in some spots. And I've done it for like 25 years, a couple of shows a year. And one of the things that we used to always tell the newer actors that would come in is you have to do your role right, not because you're the star of the show, but because you don't want to become the star of the show for all the wrong reasons. And you don't want to be the one that you're not going to be the reason why people are going to leave and go, oh man, that was a great show. But you could do something foolish on the stage if you don't take it seriously, where they are not even going to think about what else was going on in the show because what you did completely distracted them. And I think that that's the thing about lettering as well, is that if lettering is done poorly, then it becomes a distraction from what's actually happening in the art.
And just to flip it around, there are examples when the lettering actually makes the book better. Two really good examples of it. Cowboy Ninja Viking. That book is not great. It has some really cool parts. It's well drawn. And this is just my opinion. I'm just going to be very blunt about this. From a story beat standpoint, there are things about it I absolutely hate. But my favorite thing in that book is the lettering. The lettering is freaking awesome. You can tell when pirate, ninja, and Viking are talking. And it's so
cool.
really cool when it's done. The story, but good design. It definitely was. The execution was really interesting. I really dig it, even though, like I said, the main story I wasn't a crazy fan of. That's a good example. Another really good example, although it wasn't Christopher Priest's Vampirella run, it was the one before that, the Par Cornell's. The lettering was like her thoughts. I really liked how they did that. And it was like, that's an interesting thing to have that voice in the back of your head, kind of like as your subconscious. So there's some really cool things you can do with lettering. And it's just like, just storytelling, geeking out here stuff right now. But it just all goes to say that everything you do, and I'm conscious that I just released the first video I edited for the show. Trust me, there are things in there I look at and go, I wish it was better. I wish it was, but
that's all of us though.
Yeah, it would. No, it just is. Like, but I also know, like, for the moment and at the time, like, it's sometimes going just in defense of some of the art you see, right? Sometimes there is just limitations of what you can do. But I think the absolute worst, and I see this with ads and to some degree band covers sometimes too, right? Is where I see this is like, this is really cool. It's like, kind of. It's just like, kind of. It's a pretty image. I don't know why it's here. I don't.
Yeah, but, definitely. Well, we are actually here to talk about our current Kickstarter for Misfitz Clubhouse. I don't want to. We're good. I love the tangents we've gone on. I feel like we can talk all night. But I do. Yeah. I have a limited time, so I want to make sure that we talk about
absolutely.
Our current campaign with our kiddos.
Let's get to it. Like, first off, congratulations. I mean, it looks like it's going really well. You're near from what I can tell. You are currently you just broke or passed. You're trying to get to, like, is there, you guys have done a few of these campaigns before. So is there, like, because you've done so many different campaigns, do you always like set higher bars for yourself when you do these, or do you just kind of take each project as its own deal?
Well, so until this one, we always wanted to see things escalate, because the first 5 we did, this is the 6th campaign we've done. The first 5 all were in the same IP realm. Heirs of Isildur, Tales from Nocturnia, the metal music, they all were kind of right here in this bubble. Misfitz Clubhouse kind of sits in this bubble over here. It's an apple and orange kind of thing. So we knew going into Misfitz Clubhouse that this was going to be a different IP, a different fan base to go out and pull on. It's not inconsistent with the other things we do. It's a branch off of what we do. So we had lower expectations as far as backer count number, dollar amount. We just wanted to be able to see this thing fund and be able to see our fan base expand into this area. When it comes to, say, the next Kickstarter we do, which is going to be for Heirs of Isildur, The Perilous Prospects #1, that's going to happen probably January, February. That one, we're going to be basically back into that big bubble and hopefully see that one raise. to where the last couple of campaigns were. But for this one, if we get to 100 backers on it, if we end and we get to $4,000, I think we're going to see that as a huge success, just because the campaign itself is far more stripped down. Normally, you've got leatherwork and woodwork. The last couple of campaigns had, had CDs and splatter vinyl and T-shirts and all this kind of stuff. This one's got a very straightforward campaign. There's 4 covers. It's a 24-page issue. We have a sticker sheet we're doing. We have silly socks that we're getting printed up. We have the ability to get it drawn in, but otherwise it's a pretty straightforward campaign. So you can't expect that when you are taking something that is an all ages title, and we say all ages, we truly mean all ages. Sometimes the term all ages gets a bad rap and people think that it's, if it's all ages, it means it's kid stuff. It means that, Sesame Street crowd. No, it's not Sesame Street at all. This is something that an 8-year-old is going to find laughs in, a 40-year-old is going to find laughs in, an 80-year-old is going to find laughs in, and it's going to be safe entertainment for all of them. That's what all ages means to us. And, anybody that's seen any of the artwork and the things that are in Misfitz Clubhouse, they've laughed at it, and that's all that matters to us.
All right. So I guess I'll ask, I don't really think it's that going back to something I've said in other campaigns, horror writers and young adult actually I think are very similar. It's you play with the same, to put this in a musical term, you play with the same piano keys. Yes. It's just how you do it. In horror, right? I'm just going to keep it simple. You play with the dark keys a lot and you have a few white keys in there just to make it so you can tell the light and dark balance. With kid stuff, you're playing with the white keys a lot more and you just have a little black keys to show the darkness or whatever the obstacle is.
Right. Like
the kids overcome. But I actually find it's essentially you're using the same tools. It's just how you use them is a little bit differently.
Yeah, I think that the kind of entertainment, the kind of humor that's in there is going to be very similar. The kind of structure. It is kind of funny with Steph being a horror movie reviewer and horror and dark columnist in that respect, and then us having the other things that we do. Richard Rivera, who is the writer of Stabity Bunny, he also does Wild Bull and Chipper, and he also runs the Scoot imprint for Scout Comics. He was the one that was like, you guys should write you guys should try your hand at doing some all ages titles or even YA. And he's like, I know your personalities. You guys are silly knuckleheads. And he didn't say that's my summation of it. Yeah. And he knew that's something that he knew that's something that we would actually excel at, or that's what he thought. And we've had a lot of fun. We've had a lot of fun crafting the stories. The way the story arcs, quote unquote, happen for Misfitz Clubhouse is way simpler than anything else we've ever done, because Heirs of Isildur, you had an 11-issue arc, then you had Nightmare Scenario, now this other epic arc that's going to come after it. Tales from Nocturnia is an epic medieval arc. Albums are epic arcs. Misfitz Clubhouse is a 4-page one-off story, a 16-page one-off story, a 6-page one-off story, where think about when you watch Scooby-Doo. It doesn't matter if you're watching season 1 or you're watching season 7, or if you even know what season they're in, because they're all interchangeable episodes. It's, hey, I want to go watch a 15-minute Scooby-Doo or a 30-minute Scooby-Doo. That was a funny episode. Cool. I can go on about my business. I don't have to go, man, I have no idea what's going on in that Scooby-Doo show, because I didn't see the first 5 seasons. I got to go back and watch, 20 episodes, 5 seasons apiece to understand what's going on here. That's how Misfitz Clubhouse is structured. Everything is pretty self-contained, which, if we go back to when Steph and I met, that pulls a lot more on what her original strength was in comic writing, which was the short story. She was queen of the 1-page comic. She had a lot of stories that were 1 to 8 pages. So this really encapsulates and pulls on that skill set that she had much more than Heirs of Isildur and Tales from Nocturnia does.
We go a bunch of different ways here. So when we have a longer episode next time, right, Steph, we're going to definitely talk a lot about your background a lot more, because I got bits and pieces and I definitely want to know a little bit more. Like, with all due respect, Matt's went through his origin story the first time. I feel like yours is like, there's a lot more to it. And I want to get to it. I want to get to it at some point. Yeah. But I think because I don't know how much more time you have, I can't imagine it's too much more. So for you, was this like coming home? Was this like, you know what? This is fun again now that I've done these like giant arcs for a while.
Yeah, it's kind of funny in some ways. Yes. Writing something that's all ages. This is my first foray into it. And I mean, even when I was doing the shorter comics, they tended to be horror or adventure a lot, or like Western themed. But I could go pretty dark into horror, and so having to do a short condensed story, but having to keep it light and fun has been a challenge, but a good challenge. It's not like a, oh, reluctant type of thing. It's fun and it's different. And I like that we're doing this because it really does fit with our personalities. We're silly, we're goofy. We don't take ourselves too seriously. I mean, if you've seen us at shows, we dress alike in crazy outfits. And that's just part of our shtick that we have now. And it's what we stand out that way. And so tapping into that a little bit to creatively write stories, it is fun. And you have one of the things that I've noticed when we've been writing these stories is we have less limitations. Writing in the steampunk realm and writing in the fantasy realm, you can take liberties, but you still, if you're going to write in that genre, you have to kind of stay in your corner a little bit. And even when we're working on airs, there's a lot of times where that's Matt's forte. He loves, I've been introduced into steampunk now, of course, but he was a big fan of that and the more proper Victorian way of speaking, of character speaking. Whereas I'm like, I want to write in current times and write slang and write how people, when I read a comic, I like it when you feel like you're actually witnessing a real conversation because it seems realistic. It seems like two people that are actually having a conversation, and they don't sound like they're it just, if it becomes really unrealistic, I get pulled out of it because I'm like, no one would talk like this in this day and age, And so I've read comics that are that way. But when you have airs, when you have a steampunk title that's in Victorian, era times, and you have a medieval fantasy, you can get away with more proper speaking, and it makes sense. If they were talking in slang, that would not make sense at all. You'd be like, why are these, these fantasy people, using modern day slang? It doesn't work. So it's been fun to kind of be able to tap into that a little bit. We have our kids, obviously, they're going to talk like kids. And one of the fun things has been fitting in little like slogans and catchphrases that people in our lives have said. It's just kind of like a little bit of a tribute to them. So that's been fun.
So do you have anything like that before I go to my next question?
No, I mean, one of the things, like I said, we've got the first story for Misfitz Clubhouse actually appeared in Scoot Frontiers magazine, issue number 1. And there's our characters are right there somewhere on the cover, right there.
There you go.
And the first story that we had was the gripping tale of a very big social issue in our time called I Don't Want Any Asparagus. It's about our little girl, Miki, whose mom is making some asparagus, and she finds out, and she goes into some histrionics about how much she hates asparagus and doesn't want to have anything to do with it. And she just blows it out of proportion. And that's where the fun is in this story, because we take things that are completely mundane, or to like us as an adult, we're like, yeah, it's no big deal. It's kind of cool. Like, playing a game of pinball, and the kids get stuck in a pinball machine and they have to find a way to play their way out and escape this alien planet and alien pursuers that are inside the game. That's one of the fun things, is to be able to take these things that if you just go, yeah, we have a story about a kid that doesn't want to eat asparagus. That doesn't sound very interesting. But when you see the story, you're like, wow, man, this kid is going berserk. Or yeah, they go play a game of pinball. That doesn't sound like a whole story, but that's what makes it fun, is you can take these things and blow them completely out of proportion and just be like, we're like, how much more silly can we possibly get with this story? All right, let's add it in there. Then we tell the artist, we're like, here's this silly idea we have. And he's like, what if I do this too and make it crazier? And we're like, why did we not think of that? And why in the heck did he think of that? Because that's insane.
Yeah, our artist, Raheel Mosen, this is his strength, is to do like all ages art. And Matt and I have always said, we're like, it's only a matter of time before somebody finds out about him and he's whisked off to some, Cartoon Network or something.
I don't know why people keep saying that. No, he needs to stay with us for always.
I know. Well, yeah, he does need to stay. Well, let's hope that he gets whisked away to Cartoon Network for our title, and then we go with him. But his style is he's really brought these characters to life, and it's so great when you have that working relationship with your artist where they and he's actually had some ideas where we've said, you know what, let's roll with that, let's see where we can go with that, and it's been great.
So basically you found the perfect teammate for you guys, because it sounds like the cool thing about kid stories, here's the really cool thing, there are no rules, because kids have the wildest imaginations. So you don't have to really fit any conventional rules. You can just do your own thing, and it works because it's fun. And that's really the secret to a good kid story is it fun, right? Because if it's fun, then everybody's along with you for the ride. And if it's not fun, right, then then no one cares. Like no one. That's the whole thing about a kid's book, right? So it sounds like your artist is one of those people that just said, I get you guys. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to have a good time with it. And I'm just going to go wherever you take me. And he just takes it to another level for you guys.
Well, I can tell you right now, I feel like across the board, we have multiple teams that we work with. And I feel like across the board, the different teams that we work with are probably the best overall group, top to bottom, that we've ever had. Raheel obviously is like a crazy mind meld for Steph and I. Richard Rivera, who is our rep with Scout Comics on the Scoot imprint. Richard has done a lot to support us and educate us on that train. And then we have an art team out of Brazil. We have Bruno and Alessandro that are the art team on Heirs of Isildur, on the new the Perilous Prospects arc. And they mesh as well as Steph and I do. Like they're an art team as well. And it's been really neat because like even today we were working on two different scripts. We're working on some Misfitz Clubhouse scripts, and we were polishing up some of the later scripts for Heirs. And we're like, okay, we're working on the script for Alessandro right now. We need to make sure we construct the panels a specific way, because he approaches his panels in a different way than Raheel does. So if Raheel was our artist on Heirs of Isildur, we'd have to approach the script in a different way, and vice versa. So we have to like compartmentalize. Like, okay, we're thinking in this team's realm right now. Let's make sure that we're doing the things we need to do for them. Okay, now we're going to be over here in this team's realm. How are we going to go and reconfigure our brain to make sure that we are doing the right thing for them? And we feel like that the people we have around us right now are probably some of the best top to bottom that we have. And hopefully we can keep these relationships going because we have a lot of big plans for the IPs that we have out there right now. And hopefully they can take off the way that we want them to.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been really nice.
The very first thing though, is we need to finish off this Kickstarter hot. The Kickstarter just got to the point where it's now counting down in hours. When you get to the end of a Kickstarter, it starts counting down in hours. So right now it's 71 hours to go. Like I said, we're at 86 backers with $3,273. We're at that point in the campaign where there are some of those last minute adjustments, people coming in at the last minute, people adjusting their pledge. So, we are in that point where, you might see big spikes one way or the other. Our hopeful goal, we at least want to get to 3,500 because that's where our first stretch goal is. That way we can give back to people. If we can get higher than that, if we can get to 4,000, then we've got other stuff to give you. But we got to get there first. We'd also love to see us get to 100 backers, just because that's a benchmark. If we can go into a show and we can say, hey, we've done 6 Kickstarters, we've never had less than 100 backers, that would be super awesome. If we can't do that, then we just don't make that comment anymore. So.
So a quick rundown, a very, very quick pitch before we go on this is it's 2 stories. It is Pinball Madness, which is the main story, the longer story, where our kids and essentially the crux of all the stories is we have these 4 kids whose imaginations are so big that they end up changing reality around them. It's kind of a good way of saying it, but they go amazing places in their imagination, and they are doing this a lot in their clubhouse in one of their backyards. One day it is storming outside and they can't go to the clubhouse and they're bummed, and so they go into the garage and the dad shows them his old pinball machine, and 3 of our 4 kids get sucked into the machine and have to find their way out, and it's up to one of them to help them escape. And we also have a shorter story in there called Dress Up Mess Up, which is seasonally appropriate for the season that just passed, Halloween, where our kids are going trick-or-treating and one of them doesn't want to go. And so they have a little bit of a dilemma on their hands. And it kind of is an unfolding of the night and how each of the kids deals with that. But our 4 kids are Miki, who is our girl with the big, crazy, curly hair. Stig is our boy character, and then we have a ferret and a sloth who creatively are named Fairy and Sloth. But we have a lot of we have several variant covers with the campaign. We have one from a 17-year-old artist named Seda Wolf, who is the creator of her own series called Soulstream. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out because it's amazing. She's incredibly talented. We got the chance to meet her and her mom at Awesome Con in DC last summer. And there it is. And we got a chance to meet them at Awesome Con in DC last summer. We were really, really impressed with how professional she is. She was signed to Scout Comics at 15. She created the comic when she was 13. And we knew that she would be perfect for a variant cover. And so that variant cover we call Time Warp because our kids are a little bit older. They're more in her style of Soulstream. And then we have a 2 covers by Raheel. And then we have a variant cover by Richard Fairgray, who took a very fun, kind of whimsical take. We call that cover Down the Drain. And if you are on the campaign, you'll see it's a silly cover that we feel is appropriate for our story. And then of course, we've got our silly socks, we've got stickers. We wanted to, normally we're known for doing like the leatherwork and the woodwork and the crazy, the vinyl. We can't quite do that with an all ages title. So we knew that we needed to do something fun and different. And so who doesn't like fun socks? I always wear fun and crazy socks. I don't wear normal socks ever. So we've got some fun socks with our kids on them. And the campaign ends on Sunday and at 9 p.m. Eastern.
9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Only a few hours after Steph completes her 19th half marathon.
Yeah. So it would be kind of nice as an accomplishment that day to see us hit some of these other goals. My goal for the race is to finish, but my goal for us is to finish strong in both ways. So if we can do that, we would be appreciative.
So then we're going to ask this is the last question. Then we'll do a one more replug just to wrap it up. But this is it. You've done this story. It's simpler, but it's also, and it's similar tools, you've used them in different ways. So now when you go back to your other projects, do they look fresher? Do you see different ways of, I'm not going to say make them sillier per se, necessarily depending on them, but does it give you a different approach of how you tell stories now in your other more established properties now that you've done this?
I think for me, one of the things that it's done is there's Steph and I have a spreadsheet that we started when we first started working together with all of the little story ideas that we had. And we just let's just capture them so we have them there so that someday maybe we can go pull off of there. And we always would be like, yeah, man, I wish we could get back and find a way to get some of those stories done because there's some on there that are really, really good one-off stories. And the basis for Misfitz Clubhouse actually came off of one of those ideas we had captured before. It's not exactly what that idea was, but it was captured from that. So it's given us the ability to take some of these little ideas that we've always wanted to find a way to get into a story and get them in there organically without forcing them. You couldn't force them into Tales from Nocturnia. You couldn't force them into Heirs of Isildur. You couldn't force them into the anthology pieces that we've done. It gives us the ability to do crazy, wacky stuff that we know when people pick them up, they're going to be like, I can't believe you guys fit that in there. I can't believe you guys did that. For the kids to have to escape from an alien planet. I know that anybody that knows me knows that virtually every fantasy football team that I have is named after some kind of aliens. My mom actually lived in Roswell when the Roswell incident took place. So we always say there's got to be some alien DNA spliced into our family some way. But it's given us the ability to kind of get that little bit of release. So we're like, okay, well, cool. We have these big, huge epics over here. Then now we can go back and work on these because we can fulfill these little tiny stories over here and kind of get these quick pops out that we want to get out that we otherwise wouldn't have the ability to. So like, it gives us that little bit of release.
Yeah,
That's
I think
my
every
opinion.
project that we work on, it helps inspire us in different ways, and we learn from each one and are able to apply it, to the next project. It's kind of interesting. We're working on scripts for multiple projects right now because we've got other Misfit stories that we're working on, and then we're working on the next story arc for Heirs of Isildur. And what's happening in the Heirs of Isildur world right now could not be any more opposite in most ways than what's happening with our kids in Misfitz Clubhouse. So in a way, it's good because we can bounce back and forth between the two, and we get different satisfactions out of each one that we're doing. But I think that there is a little bit of inspiration for each one. I think at times when you're writing, when you're creating, you tend to get in your own head a little too much and take it a little too seriously. And I know with Heirs that definitely happens sometimes. And so it's nice to there are times when I have to tell Matt, okay, you're overthinking this too much.
I don't know what you're talking about. That never happened. That has not ever happened.
I got the impression between the two of you just talking this time around. I think I could be wrong. It could be just totally could be off on your creative process. Matt, you love building worlds. I get this real big sense that you love the actual building of the worlds, and I get the sense. While I don't think Steph doesn't enjoy it, I also like this. I get the feeling she's has a bit more of that meat and potatoes. What's the story about? Let's tell a really good story. And so it's like, she goes to you, Matt, the bells and whistles are awesome, but what's the story here? And he goes to you, listen, we can have these really cool bells and whistles in here too and still get your story.
Yeah, so, I think that's a fair assessment. Yeah. And I think that's actually great that we possess those two different things, because then it fits together. Co-writing is interesting. And now that we've been doing it so long, I don't know, it would be very weird to write by myself. We're not planning on doing that. Obviously, we have In-Symmetry Creations together, but I just think about it now and it's just odd. I mean, it's like any TV show, you have a writer's room. Most of the time, television shows aren't written by one person. There's usually a team. Same thing goes with movies. You have a writer's room of people that are instilling all these different ideas. And I think that's what makes a really good story work. It's not for everybody, but it works for us.
Yeah, we're basically a 2-person writing room. But then our artists, you do have some say so as well. I mean, Raheel obviously has put some wild ideas out there and really helped to sculpt some of the things that we want to do when it comes to expanding out the Misfits world. And then even just today, our colorist on the new air stuff, Bruno Hang, he was like, hey, can I give my opinion on one of these pages, because it was colored in a way that when you put it together with its sister page, they didn't really mesh up well. And he's like, I feel like when looking at it, it should be done a little bit differently, because it feels like there's too stark of a story difference between the two. Like there was a story problem. And I'm like, hey man, I'm really glad that you've given us this, because we agree, you might see something because you're coming at it from a different angle. You might see something that is right in front of our eyes that we're not seeing. So he's helped us to make sure, they both help us to make sure that the worlds we're building are consistent. And when you go back to, and I'll say something really quick about that. I do like building the worlds, but I always say, just because you build the world, you have to figure out what part of that world is the story going to be and that's going to actually be interesting to somebody. People normally don't give a crap about all the details of the world, but if they ask, what's happening in your story better fit the rules of the universe, and you better know what those rules of the universe are. Because if you don't know what the rules of the universe are and they're like, that doesn't seem consistent, they're going to be immediately taken out of the story, just like bad lettering, just like bad writing. If the rules of the universe aren't solid, then the story is not going to be able to be constructed the right way. So that's where I am with the big understanding the rules part.
Okay. Again, I don't think we have time for this time. I'm just going to ask one last question to Matt specifically. Are you a big fantasy fan?
I am.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah. I have one. So the next time couple things. I'm going to probably speed up the audio release of this episode for you guys as a bit of a solid. I can talk to the boss. I know sometimes he's a bit of a prick, but he tends to.
I was like, who's he talking about? Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's like man. I can make fun of myself. Why not? It's my show. People make fun of me all the time. I'm good at it. It's all good, right? So, but also I also just to maximize you guys getting as big an audience as possible. My idea is where my big audience is. So I'm going to try to get, since you guys have 3 days left, I'm going to see what I can do to help you guys out. But number 2, the next time you guys do come, okay, so there's 2 things for sure we're going to talk about. I want Steph. I want to talk about your past a little bit more because I get you have an interesting story. I know it. And I've been hinted at this. Like, I kind of want to get into that a little bit more because Matt's an incredibly talented dude, but so are you. And again, the little bits and pieces I've seen, it's like, I think I've barely scratched the surface with you. And I still get that feeling with this conversation. So I want to do that. But also, Matt, I get the feeling you and I are probably have very similar tastes in fantasy. Probably stuff along the lines of like Brandon Sanderson, probably stuff like Fonda Lee, probably stuff like that. Or maybe either way, right? I think we'd have a good chat about that.
Yeah, for sure. I like big world building, but great stories inside the worlds. Like Steph and I always say, we want to create characters people can relate to and universes people want to escape into. So you have to make sure that both ends are there. So as long as it's a fantasy story that's got both aspects that are solid, then we're good to go. But so like you said, if your big audience is on the audio side, for you guys that are out there in the audio world, we do have physical tiers, we do have digital tiers and MP3 tiers. One of the things we always make sure about on our campaigns is anything we've done previously is available. We had someone just the other day that was like, I didn't realize you guys did metal music, and they picked up a Misfitz Clubhouse issue, and they picked up a metal CD. We make sure you have those out there. We've got, if you're someone that's listening to this overseas, we make sure that you can get everything we do in digital or MP3 form so that way you're not having to worry about ridiculous shipping. If you see something on the campaign, it ends at 9 p.m. on Sunday, November 7th. If you see something that you want that's not easily accessible in the campaign, reach out to us immediately. We'll make sure we make it work for you. We're never in the sales prevention department. We'll always find a way to make it work. So just reach out, but make sure you do it before Sunday so that way we can finish this campaign strong.
All right. And lastly, but not least, how can people find you?
Well, do you want me to go and tell them, Steph?
Yeah, you're good. I always get tripped up on our social media sometimes. So
the easy way to find us, the very first thing you could do is go to tinyurl.com/misfits1. That is spelled with a Z and the number 1 at the end. That'll take you directly to the Kickstarter campaign. You can go to insymmetrycreations.com. That is our umbrella site, and everything we do links back to that. You've got items on all of our stories, our one-page comics, the anthologies we've done. There's links back to the articles that Steph has written, the horror articles, the movie reviews. Our columns are up there with the lyrical look-in columns are there as well. If you want to find us on Facebook, it's /InSym. That's INSYM. On Twitter, it's InSym Creations, and on Instagram, it's InSymmetry Creations. And if you want to follow either one of us, you can get to those as well. Steph is S. Cannon Writes on Twitter, Steph Cannon Writes on Instagram, and I am Dr. Anguish, Dr. Anguish, pretty much anywhere, but I don't normally use that. Normally, I'm going to be posting to the InSym pages because we want to make sure everything is being funneled through there, and then our octopus arms can stretch out from there.
Okay. On that note, Steph, Matt, love chatting with you. Like I said, next time, we'll get into a little bit more about you guys a little bit more. For everybody watching, everybody listening, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. And like I said, this got bumped up, so this will be like, if you're listening to this, yes, I did air this tonight on Twitch, but you can also just, like I said, here it is. Go back to their campaign, do that. I'm going to remind everybody real quick, my book, Alice 1, is up for pre-order. It comes out December 1st. Definitely take a look at that. But definitely check out their stuff. And that will do it for me tonight. Tomorrow, I got a drink and draw and a conversation in India. So I'm going to be doing 2 streams tomorrow night. But for everybody watching, everybody listening, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. And I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.